Hello, everybody. Welcome back to CoinLogic TV. It's been a while. We're getting this revamped up, and we are doing it the right way. We are bringing on the one and only Taskmaster4450, one of the top bloggers, one of the top content producers on the Hive blockchain. How are you doing today, sir?
All right, just plugging along, spending my life on Hive. That's where I live.
Hey, man. I've had to get out and do some other things outside of Hive on different blockchains and just
That's not my
outside
problem.
real life. Yeah, I know. And I'm just saying, like,
It's not my fault. Don't blame me.
Hive keeps pulling me back. It's like, no, you need to come home. You need to come home, dude. So that's what we're doing. And yeah, bringing back CoinLogic TV to 3speak.tv. I'm also still posting it for everybody on YouTube as well, so we can have that, mass awareness to show people what we have actually going here on Hive. But today we're actually here, Monday market update on CoinLogic, talking about the economy. Taskmaster is one of the best people that I've seen that can actually break things down. So, I mean, we just kind of talking about kind of whatever we get into. One subject that I saw actually while I was in the gym working out was the UK the parliament talking about how they would handle data center outages and stuff like that. And as somebody that actually I run a Hive Engine node validator, witness validator, and then I also work with some Cosmos validator, in that ecosystem. And we use a lot of data centers, that kind of stuff. And that's actually something that's really kind of sparking, because it's not only, just the crypto industry that's in trouble. I mean, there's like global macro stuff that'll, fall hard if data centers start to go out due to power outages. So what do you think about all this crazy global power stuff that's going on? Is that how they're going to kill us? Is that how they're going to kill off these industries, is through power outages and that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, there's a certain bunch of Fruit Loops out there who'd like to do it, and what you have is, if we step back and take a macro look at things, the EU, which I know the UK is not part of with Brexit, but Western Europe is screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to look at a point of implosion, everybody keeps talking about China, and I'll readily admit China has a lot of headwinds. So does Japan. Japan already went over the cliff with demographics and a whole bunch of other stuff. But if you want to look at the implosion, and I made this prediction in video at the end of last year, before 2022. So this was before Russia and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. I said, even without a global recession, I predicted the EU's GDP would go negative in the next couple of years at some point, because that's how bad they are. Now you have the situation with Putin. You have the friction between one of the major energy centers in the world, or energy producers in the world, Russia. And I always laugh when people are sitting there saying, well, how long can Russia withstand the sanctions of the West? And my question is, screw that. How long can Western Europe withstand the West sanctions on Russia? Because they're going to bear the brunt of it. And, you can talk data centers, which then if we branch out, that's your digital economy. And you think about what proportion of the developed world's economy is digital. Everything from anything that's related to the internet is at risk here. Then you look at anything related to cloud. So most companies, even if they're not internet companies, their cloud, where they keep, most of them keep their databases, their ECM, all that stuff is at risk. Mm-hmm. So, when let's be honest, when the damn power goes out, you're back in the Stone Age. And, without taking a political stance here, and I'm not a big Tesla holder, but I have Tesla shares. And Tesla has the Gigafactory outside Berlin. And I'm very concerned about that scaling, because Germany, in their infinite wisdom under Merkel, said, well, let's close down all our nuclear power plants and we're just going to go renewable. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, now you find out when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow and you don't have enough batteries, well, all those articles we had out there of, oh, Germany or EU or Britain or Spain or whatever got like 92% of their energy the last month from renewables. Well, if that was the case, they wouldn't be in such a quagmire. And you turn off the Russian gas.
Well, that
You
may
know,
have
the
been
United,
last month, but it's like you got to take the whole year into account because they're not getting sun and they're not getting wind all the time either. They may have had a sunny, windy month, and that's how they're trying to judge stuff is based on these little short-term pops. It's like, oh look, I mean, I'm just as big of a fan of the environment as anybody else, but I'm not a narrative person. And I mean, I've lived in Florida. I've lived in, I'm out here on the Pacific Northwest now, and I'm seeing effects of different, you know, climate shifts and things like that. I don't call it climate change. It's climate shifts. It's evolutionary shifts. It's just how
cyclical.
the Earth works. It just is what it is. But yeah, no, I mean, it's not going to be sufficient enough to power everything that we need. We're
Not
already
yet, at
seeing,
least.
and not yet. Now, I mean, they're making some really good strides in the world of solar with some of these new films and everything that they're coming out with, but we're not there yet, especially on a mass scale. And you see, I mean, I've gone through different parts of the country, and I took a trip last summer with my kids, and that was part of it. I wanted to see some of these like big solar and wind fields, and there weren't enough of them. And two, it's like, going through Texas and Oklahoma and that kind of thing, you're seeing so many of these wind turbines that aren't even moving.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
sitting there idle, either they're
Yeah.
broken or something like that. So there's problems in that infrastructure. We saw the, situation in Texas last winter too, when everything froze up. So, I mean, there's downsides to it. I mean, I live literally on solar power, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And, like I have to have a situation where I had a car that I was using for delivery services and stuff like that, and started having some engine problems, but I kept it at my storage place for the purpose of actually sticking a solar panel in the windshield and using it as like a stationary power source.
Mhm.
Because even during because I'm in the Pacific Northwest, I'm about to get into no sun. Like we're about to
Mhm.
have months of like no sun. So at least having that area there to have something that I can use as like a power generation, it's not always reliable, because
Mhm.
it may take 2 days to charge one of my batteries kind of thing, so
Yeah. I mean,
and
progress.
yeah, and think about trying to run data centers and run, just power usage that everybody needs on a daily life off of something like that, is unthinkable almost. It's like I'm trying to figure out where people really dislike, I mean, I understand we've had the issues with nuclear, issues.
Well, I would say just don't build them on fucking fault lines to start.
Exactly.
You know?
Fault
I
lines and
mean,
like really shaky ground. That's just kind of stupid,
I've lived for most of the last 30 years. I've been within, as the crows flies, about 80 miles of a nuke plant.
Yep.
A little time I lived in the Keys and a little time I lived out of state, but
Yep.
most of the last 30 years. And this was built in the 80s. I know people worked on it. The fucking walls are 12 feet thick of concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on a peninsula where the ground doesn't shake. And the only thing that happens around here is the wind blows. Well, you're not going to blow over 12 feet of concrete. And with solar, with batteries, all this stuff is progressing, but you still got to look, where you're located. I mean,
Yeah.
most of Western Europe is like at the same latitude as freaking Calgary. And if you look at the United States, the epicenter for solar is run down the California coast, make a right, and go across Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, southern Alabama, Mississippi, and then into the Florida Peninsula. Those are actually ideal for solar. Why? Because where I live, I get like 300 days of sun a year. And even though in the winter the sun is lower in the sky, it's at least above the horizon, unlike
Mm-hmm.
Canada. I'm a lot closer. I'm 1,000 miles from the equator. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not 3,000 miles from the damn equator.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean Canada can't do well with hydrothermal. I'm a big fan of actually geothermal.
Yeah. But you're limited in that in a lot of places too. So
yeah, you're limited with that. Although the advancement there is in drilling techniques, and they claim that they're able to get 10, 12 miles down into the core of the earth to start to take the earth's gases and use that for energy. But either way, there's no doubt we are having increases globally in energy needs. Our economies are powered by energy, and quite frankly, they're powered by fossil fuels. And so if you do away with data centers, if you do away with manufacturing plants, you do away with food production. I mean, what do you think powers all this stuff? What powers the tractors for food production? What are fertilizers made from? What do they make machines from? Even the renewable energy, when they start, well, solar panels, what do you think they're made from? How do they get to truck the solar panels, and how do they truck
Yep.
the wind turbines out? They use trucks
They
powered
use
by fossil
diesel
fuel.
fuel. Yep.
And,
Well, that was one thing that, yeah, that was one thing they were saying in Parliament. It's like, we don't have a choice. We're going to have to put diesel generators in all these places. Like,
which welcome to the environment where you crush all the natural gas plants, which natural gas is cleaner than diesel. And now you're saying, well, we close our natural gas plants, so we'll kick in the diesel. Well, Christ, I mean, the only thing worse than diesel maybe is coal. And I don't even know if coal's worse than diesel, but either of them are probably as low as you can get on the pollution scale.
yeah,
And they're having to kick them up because they did away with the natural gas. You know, I love what Elon Musk and Tesla is doing with the peaker plants and the batteries, and replacing natural gas, or worse, you know, oil and these things to help take the peaker plants offline and make them renewable. But you know, it's going to take a while for them to build these mega packs and to get these plants online where they can power them up on off peak hours, then pull the energy at peak hours. You know, they've done like 3 major installations, probably amounting to about $1.5 billion.
yeah.
They probably need a couple $100 billion of these things installed. So it's going to take a while. Great idea. And, you know, I mean, who knows how it'll work. So, you know, the idea that the EU went in this direction, all of Western Europe went in this direction, it's going to screw their economy, which was screwed to begin with. They got major demographic problems in Italy, Germany, Spain. They got major pension problems. I mean, you want to talk about a Cadillac plan? Screw that. Spain has a Rolls-Royce plan or a Bentley plan. It's ridiculous. They don't have enough people to support this. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen is you end up with consumption going down. You end up, and the only way you can make up for that to keep production up is export. But most of the developed world is facing demographic issues of their own. Technology is allowing us to start thinking about producing stuff closer to where it's consumed, adjusting the supply chains. Then you also have the situation where you're going to get civil unrest because, you know, these 25, 30, 35, 40-year-olds aren't going to want to see their taxes go through the roof so they can pay more of their paycheck to go to the pension funds that across the world, in the developed world, all these pension funds are underfunded. And that was with a record high stock market. Now that the stock market's fallen back, you know, they're severely underfunded. So all of this stuff, then you get these ESG initiatives that these pension funds have to invest in, and they lose money because these wind farms and these different power plants, they're all closing up shop, especially in Western Europe, because they can't make any damn money.
Yeah.
You know, I live in Florida. FP&L has a 30 million solar panels installed in their solar fields by 2030. Well, it's Florida. We get 300 days of sun. You can do that. If this was in Calgary, I'd say you guys are wasting money. So that's really where it comes into play. And I think Europe is really screwed. You mentioned data centers. I could go with the manufacturer, and I could go with just the state of the economies. Tell me who the largest tech company is in the EU. I don't even know. It might be SAP. I mean, where are their Alibabas? Where are their Facebooks? Where are their Googles? Where are their Amazons? They don't have anybody.
They don't have them because
they
tag along on everybody else. But what they do is they do have a crap ton of data centers out there, and like a lot of the main data centers that are running a lot of the infrastructure of these blockchains and stuff, you know, bringing it back to the crypto industry, is the fact that a lot of them are in Germany and that kind of thing. And what's going to happen when all these data centers can't power, can't power the machines that are trying to run these blockchains. I mean, they're done. I mean, it's most of these are like proof of stake chains are going to be done at that point. And it's like with the issue with there was Hetzner that actually came out and was like, yeah, blockchain is basically against our terms of service, and here's a whole lot of the infrastructure for, I know, Ethereum, a lot of infrastructure I know for Hive, and Hive engine was running on Hetzner. A lot of the Cosmos ecosystem was running on Hetzner and that kind of thing. So there's been having huge shifts away from that. So I mean, there's that's why it's important for people, if we do care about this and if we do want this to be the future of money, we've got to decentralize and get away from these large centralized data centers and mining facilities and that kind of thing. As far as with Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, that kind of stuff, we've got to create our own infrastructures. You have to go out and invest in your own machines and your own, but at the same time, what happens when you lose power at home if you're trying to run a self-hosted node, that kind of thing? If you lose internet, because I mean, the internet relies on power. Everything relies on power. So if everything goes out, you're going to lose internet too. I mean, that's, I mean, I know that they're thinking about it because their entire infrastructure at this point is basically running online, but I'm sure the governments have their own, networks and infrastructures that they can keep live and keep running and that kind of thing when they can shut out any public networks. I'm sure that's probably a thing. And so that's what is, highly concerning me on these kind of issues, as far as on a business end of things. Now, yeah, you want to get global, you want to get personal. I mean, I'm actually selling a lot of my crypto going into booze, bud, batteries, bullets, beans, that kind of thing. My stock room is looking pretty nice these days, as far as I know that I will survive any kind of major stuff like that. I mean, because people like you and I was in Florida for a long time, no longer in Florida because of a hurricane. You know that story. We've talked about it before. And, you look at like what with Hurricane Ian, and a lot of this is you're trying to build solar panels. Well, those fields can be washed away or blown away pretty easily, by something like that, so there goes that kind of infrastructure in those kind of situations. What I've always thought about, especially with like coastal areas like Florida, is using tidal, like using currents and your tidal, waves and that kind of thing, running turbines under the water. I mean, I don't know why we don't do more of that.
Well, with any of this, you always have the problem of energy loss, and I quite frankly don't follow it enough to see what improvements have been made on transmission lines and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
you have
always a
resistance
problem
and
of
that kind of
getting
thing.
the energy created is one thing, but then how do you get it to where it's actually needed?
Mhm.
And the grid is the grid. So, it's old, it's, they got to run a lot of lines. It's the lines. I mean, I don't know the physics behind it because I'm just not that talented, but they have their mathematical calculations of how much is lost every
Yeah,
mile. And, I mean, by the time you move that stuff 30, 40, 50 miles, you're losing a lot of energy. So, I personally don't believe with any of this on the energy side of things, there's any one single solution. I do believe it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. Um, but I don't care how you strip it down. At the end of the day, the modern economy is dependent upon energy. It's always been that way. That's always been one of the things
yeah,
from the time of fire.
yeah,
So, you can talk about data centers, but we can talk about food storage. I mean, what happens without refrigeration? Food goes
screwed.
bad.
Yep.
What happens with if you can't transport food? People starve. There's a host of things that are all tied to energy and manufacturing and transportation and entertainment and
Hmm.
news and all this stuff that I mean, if Amazon, if you can't get online to buy to Amazon or whatever the version is in Europe, and even if you can get online to buy it, but they can't deliver it because there's no fuel. I mean, you're just going in circles here. And so, these pissing contests that our leaders are getting into, and I wrote a post how we have the dumbest leadership in my
Oh my
lifetime
god.
in the West
Oh my
ever.
god. Yes,
And
it's freaking
this is
ridiculous.
this is
Oh yeah.
across Europe. this
Putin
across
blew up his
Europe.
own pipelines. Yeah, we're gonna
Canada,
make
yeah,
everybody believe that.
yeah. So now, I mean,
Putin's like, I got the freaking valve. Why do I need to blow it up? It's like,
yeah,
and they expect
it's
us just to believe it, you know.
yeah, it's well, it's even not even going there. It's they were screwed before this, and this is why it's even a bigger screwing. And people are seeing the energy prices go through the roof.
Oh man,
Uh,
it's
and
ridiculous here, man. Across the street right now, it's actually 4.99. But that's like one of the or 4.96 is the lowest that I've seen in this particular area. You go across the bridge over into Eugene, and we are looking at 5.39, 5.40 a gallon. It is freaking ridiculous.
Well, and what happens there is, your copier companies that are sending texts out can't afford to hit. Your food delivery companies can't afford to hit. You
Yeah,
look at UPS and FedEx and the postal system always operates a loss anyway, but FedEx and UPS. And okay, they're hedged, but they only hedge for about a year. They
yeah.
only use hedges for about a year on their fuel, and then they have to reset them at the new price. So now all of a sudden it gets cost. And so Amazon either has to charge more for shipping, or Amazon Prime, it's free. So that cuts into their profits. It's just this whole cycle that echoes throughout the economy. And it doesn't matter what country you look at, it's all the same thing. It's a developed world. And you want stuff to show up at your door, whether it's a new sofa, whether it's food, or be at the store, either way, a television, a new car, it doesn't matter. Somehow it got shipped to where you are buying it. And it just, you start to lose that segment of the economy, coupled with the fact that people's personal income statements get obliterated when their food and their housing and their energy costs go through the roof. Three things you can't get away from too easily. So that's why all of a sudden you see the demand in laptops and big screen TVs and all that shit, clothing, fall off a cliff.
Oh man, yeah.
Because it's like, well, if I got to spend 25% more of my electric bill, and let's say that's, I don't know, $30, well, that's $30 I don't have to spend someplace else.
Yep.
And you just start to see that ripple through the economy.
Well,
Now, people right now are making up for that with credit cards, but that comes to an end at some point too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, man. I mean, it's like I was doing the whole food delivery thing. Well, I'm not making money doing that. I'm actually running at a loss. I tried to run this weekend to make some extra cash just to try to pay some bills because markets have been crap. But it's actually worth it. I've figured it out, is that it's actually worth it more for me to park and just produce content on Hive and try to trade and do my little stuff like that. I actually make more doing that than I do trying to go out and make dollars, at this point. And
Yeah.
I'm completely at a loss here with these crazy gas prices, and not to mention the fact that I just had to spend $1,100 in repairs on my van, and they were like, "Oh yeah, your suspension needs to be fixed too," and I'm like, "Oh great," So it is, it's crazy out there, and people are having to make really crazy adjustments. And just in the last few minutes we have of this meeting, because apparently Zoom is wanting to limit me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's 40 minutes, so you have to do it in two parts if you're going to do an hour and 15 minutes.
yeah,
They limit to 40, I think, if I remember.
yeah. Well, this is it's been a great discussion anyway, and because these are the things that people need to look at. Like I'm out there and in blockchain land trying to develop these different projects, and I'm looking at a lot of the stuff that's coming out, and even looking, that's why I try to work towards use case, and that kind of thing in a lot of my stuff. And I try to push use case, like with Hive List, I'm trying to build a new economy to get us away from the other stuff, and to allow people, because we got a new jeweler online, she's doing her own handmade stuff. It's got some great stuff up there, I'm giving up people opportunities to create their own crypto-based businesses, kind of thing. And selling real world products, is we're gonna have to make a change somewhere down the line. And it's just taken people a long time to shift gears. It took them a long time to shift gears from going to Walmart shopping every day to buying stuff from Amazon. That took a long time. So
Well, but don't forget, before that, you had eBay, you had Craigslist, you had Ecency,
Mm-hmm.
you had all these different things, maybe not before Amazon, but they were all kind of coming together at the same time. And I agree with you 1,000%. That's the type of stuff we need to get on tied to cryptocurrency and
Yeah.
let people build their own cryptocurrency business. And whatever you create, people can
Mm-hmm.
pay it in crypto and HBD on Hive. We have a great
Yep.
stable coin, and if with BHBD and PHBD being arbitraged, and you can use any of those on those chains. I
You'll
mean,
be
it's a
able to buy
nice,
music with it soon, with both of those soon. We've got the
yeah.
Binance Smart Chain up and running with you can buy our BTunes token, which is investing in our DAO there, with BHBD. And then you can also when we get our NFTs cranking, you're going to be able to buy NFTs with both BHBD and on our Polygon networks with the PHBD. So we're setting both of that up here
I
pretty
thought for
soon. So
years a similar app like Fiverr would be great on Hive, where you put out your services, for whatever, design a logo or whatever, for 5 or 10 HBD.
yeah, and that was part of Hivelist too, is I mean, it's really a classifieds network, more
Yeah,
than the retail store. The hivelist.org is a classifieds network for you to be able to put out your services and things like that. The problem is just trying to get people to use it correctly.
yeah.
Is and that's just that's another thing I got to get back and in a big push on. But yeah, it's going to take us a while, but we got to be able to get outside of this situation. People need to learn how to take control of themselves. 3D printing, learn how to 3D print your own stuff, so you're not having to order out, and then you can actually create your own businesses that way too. That's one thing. When I get to the farm next year in Alabama, I'm going to be able to set up. We're going to be growing mushrooms, microgreens. I'm going to be growing all the plants for the seeds that I'm going to be using for the microgreens. So we're going to have that. We're going to have chickens, and then 3D printing. We're going to be running a lot of solar and wind there too, just trying to make up, offset some of the stuff, so we're not having to pay the power company. But Alabama,
Mhm.
they have their as for Alabama Power and the Tennessee Valley Authority, they are a mafia straight up. They are a straight up mafia.
FPL is not too far from that.
Oh yeah, I know FPL too, man, and the Florida Keys Electric Cooperative. But see, I actually know a lot of the people in the Florida Keys Electric Cooperative, so they're not as bad. But
FPL is
oh,
pretty bad.
FPL is horrible. Yeah, the same thing with Alabama Power. But we actually, what's crazy is our property, where our property sits, we have Alabama Power running major lines through our mountain, like through the backside of our property, and we have to give them easement and that kind of thing. But we have to buy our power from what's called Coosa Valley Cooperative, who actually buys their power from Alabama Power. So I'm getting upcharged with their lines running through the middle of our property. It doesn't make any sense. And even the administrator from Coosa Valley, when I was talking to her about the solar gig, she was like, "Yeah, that's such a ripoff." She's like, "It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life."
Take a couple grand and catch one of linemen and say, "Hey, can you run a line off there right into
Right.
right into my property here? Or here's a
Well,
couple grand."
well, what was great is she told me how to get off grid with a lot of my solar and wind stuff. She's like, because you're not going to make anything trying to feed anything back to the grid. She's like, they're not going to pay you anything. She's like, and you got to do this and that. She's like, just go off grid. And she told me exactly what to use and all this kind of stuff. I was like, thank you. So, but yeah, everybody needs to learn how to produce their own power, even if it is just getting like an emergency solar setup or something like that for your house, little lithium batteries. Hang on. Um, you know, something like this, that I'm currently charging my computer on. This is a 300-watt little setup with a couple of outlets on it, kind of thing. USB. I mean, that's enough to, and I got 3 of these things that I just kind of rotate through, and can charge it off of, little 100-watt solar panel. Everybody needs to get a little something like that, because we're getting into some crazy times. Get a little beyond thinking about your NFTs and your digital assets, and figure about stuff that you're going to need, because things are getting real. And obviously they're getting worried about data centers, and no data centers, no internet, no blockchains, so we got to start thinking real about that kind of stuff. So the task, thanks for coming on. Really enjoy the conversations. Hopefully we can keep doing this kind of stuff, coming up with different topics to talk about. And I'm going to get the Zoom thing down, so maybe we can or I may just have to upgrade.
Now, as I said with Zoom, what the easiest way is film 40 minutes, then open up another room, film
Yeah,
it again, and then just splice the two together with some cheap editing software.
yeah, well, I got iMovie covered, Final Cut, all that stuff. So
Yeah. So then you just take the two parts and upload them and splice them together, and now you got a hour and 20-minute video or hour video or whatever.
we'll get it done next time, man. Well, hey, appreciate it, and I'm gonna get this posted up, and we'll share it around. Everybody out there, be safe out there in these crazy times, man. So be cool, be real, and
Ciao.
always abide, everybody.